Every year, something new is found somewhere in the From Software lineup. It can range from lore speculations to gameplay mechanics, causing a stronger bond within the community and long-term value for games that's already a beautiful milestone in gaming. This series will be focusing on the oversights and misconceptions found throughout. I hope this presentation offers you a different perspective on something I once believed to be misaligned or disorderly. Be patient and be present for tales from the software. What's your opinion on the bed of chaos? Your response is probably, it's chaotic, it's unpredictable, it's broken, the hitbox are wonky, or, I hate it, it's a good thing it has checkpoints. I'm presenting a case that the bed of chaos works as intended with an asterisk. There is a consistent and reliable method to defeat the bed of chaos without exploits, and many players are unaware of this due to one actual flaw that gets praise: the checkpoints. I'm sure most fans realize that this fight is one of many concepts borrowed from Demon Souls. The Dragon God, of course, is the inspiration for the Bed of Chaos, with 2 points allowing center passage to success, and arguably just as difficult to solve if the Bed of Chaos didn't have checkpoints. Majority of boss fights in Dark Souls requires a certain amount of combat knowledge in order for an accomplished kill. What is excluded is Bed of Chaos, Ceaseless Discharge, and Pinwheel. All of these are by design and haven't been significantly changed for future releases. The reason I mention this is because the Bed of Chaos isn't designed for you to learn how it works. This is what I believe to be part of the lack in appreciation for its design. Most, if not all, mainstream and general gamers will tell you that the Bed of Chaos is poorly designed, though due to implementation of checkpoints, this inevitably leads to the lack of knowledge. I'll explain how it all works. First, pick a side and stay away from the side of the trees facing towards the Bed of Chaos. Then destroy the twisted, glowing roots. Next, the floor will crumble, however, be watchful for the sweeps, slams, and slices. Make your way to the side of the first tree facing away from the boss, then get back to the starting point. Now for the final run. I find that hitting this particular corner of the edge is consistently trustworthy. However, still be aware that the Chaos Firestorm can still activate in this area, and that attack is more devastating than the Waterfowl Dance from Millennia in Elden Ring, due to its harsh nature of occurring at the absolute worst time possible. Thankfully, once you figure out the flow of the platforming, then you'll no longer have issues. I feel confident to say that slice attacks don't appear to happen at the same time as the Chaos Firestorm, so evading should be reasonable at least. Even with that, the best way to avoid getting caught in the Chaos Firestorm is to remember a very popular quote from Sakuraba.
Hesitation is defeat.
That's right. The Bed of Chaos actually rewards the player for learning the flow and rhythm by removing the Chaos Firestorm entirely, as long as you keep going. In a way, it's similar of a reward for defeating Sir alone without taking damage in the Dark Souls 2 DLC, where the boss commits seppuku. I went through around 10 playthroughs practicing the Bed of Chaos, and after every attempt, my failures started to make sense one by one, just like every other boss works. However, eating about 2 hours for each attempt quickly got discouraging, so I resorted to save scumming to try as much as I wanted within a reasonable amount of time. As a bonus, I wanted to see if all of this could be done without jumping, and it's definitely possible, and it feels more attended this way. I only have to deal with maybe 6 sives, and if you can remember where they hit, then you got it. The rest is just running. There's a misconception that you must jump or roll to reach the final branch, but that isn't true at all. There's a very distinguishable tile that allows you to simply drop on the branch every time. Just make sure that the hands of the Bed of Chaos is not in the middle of a sweep or slam. The slice impact locations slightly changes from phase 2 and 3, however is hardly noticeable. Some have locations that can affect the player, even when running, so it's important to observe and listen for a slice attack to occur. If you can understand the rhythm and flow of this fight, then you'll never have a problem with it again. I'm not saying you have to love or like this boss. However, I think its design deserves some amount of respect because it offers a very unique challenge. From what I have gathered from the community is that the pitfalls is the worst part of the fight. The platforming is indeed very slippery in Dark Souls, so once you get too close to the edges, there's a really good chance that you're going to fall, and this comes usually as a surprise since the floor collapses very quickly at arrival. However, there are reasonable areas that activates the falling floors. I realize that newcomers will not be aware of this on the first attempt and have a major disadvantage. After watching several blind playthroughs, I noticed that most players are not even focusing on the floor when they start running back. After destroying the first glowing root, a smaller detail that players hate is getting knocked off the root by draping parts at the top. But just make an observation and it won't happen. I can't even recall that happening to me over the crazy amount of attempts I've endured. Is this unfair? The other times we see collapsing floors is the drop into the Stray Demon boss arena and a section in Lost Izalith. It also has no warning, of course. The difference is survival. Personally, I think this could have been resolved by having a closer bonfire. What also doesn't help is the long and monotonous run back, and that's from a secret bonfire. I can't imagine how players feel these days after Elden Ring to perish from falling without warning just to spend several minutes running back. It's already known that Lost Izalith is half-baked in design, which doesn't help the Bed of Chaos in its lesser-known qualities. Even after State of the Chaos, Firestorm, and the collapsing floors, I feel it's unfair to criticize the Bed of Chaos so extremely when other bosses have surprising, powerful attacks, like the Crystal Curse Explosion from Seath the Scaleless, Gravelord Sword Dance from Gravelord Nito, Gliding Thrust from Ornstein, Fireburst Explosion from Quelaag, or the Energy Bolt from the Four Kings, which all have their own methods of evasion, though can't be necessarily predicted on first attempts. These don't have to conclude in instant death, but I feel my point still stands. Supposedly Miyazaki states that the Bed of Chaos is his biggest regret. However, after finding these consistencies, I'm very confused by the statement. I would understand if he was referring to adding checkpoints and the boring runback, however I feel those could be corrected quite easily. The 2018 upgrade of Dark Souls added a bonfire right before Pinwheel, so why couldn't a bonfire be placed perhaps after this Chaos Eater? Removing the checkpoints would be more reasonable, since the runback would be significantly cut down, then the players could organically learn how the fight works. After writing everything for this video, I really wanted a deeper understanding of how the From Software community felt about the Bed of Chaos, and I was personally shocked on how poorly most people discuss the Bed of Chaos, with the results typically ending with anger or confusion. I had one individual that couldn't even tell me 5 different valid methods to reaching the slug at the end. Another individual couldn't understand the difference between preference and factual information. Most people simply gave up speaking to me, even other creators that posted essays, video essays discussing the Bed of Chaos. These interactions proved to me why having the checkpoints was a death sentence for the design. I wasn't expecting people to say that the Bed of Chaos was their favorite boss. I understand why a platform-based boss isn't exactly appealing compared to the boss lineup in Dark Souls. I just wanted to see if anyone could explain the supposed flaws from within, and the truth is, the majority of players don't have a clue. Most complaints can be applied to any other boss fight. I got several responses that the Bed of Chaos was a trial and error fight. However, that's one of the key aspects in the design philosophy of Dark Souls, so that doesn't even make sense to criticize. There was a statement about how the only goal was to hit 3 spots, but with other fights you hit 1 spot, however, several times over. As you can see, I hardly had any conversations that went into conclusion in terms of design flaw claims. Not one person considered that the checkpoints was the problem, because it's too much of a convenience. And most of conversations kept leading back into preferences, not design flaws. How certain are you that you'll defeat the Bed of Chaos with 1 attempt per playthrough? To answer that here, I can comfortably say that I am 90% confident that I would, based on consistency. Then there's a chance of myself forgetting smaller details, and of course the Firestorm occurring at the worst possible time. In conclusion, Lost Izalith and the checkpoints are to blame for the major repulsion across the community, because I feel if people learn entirely how this fight works, then it would have higher respect. Do I expect more people to enjoy this type of boss? Of course not, but I want them to see that due to preference, not inaccuracies of judgment, which is of course a common problem among the World Wide Web. I'm afraid that it might be too late to ask players to look at the Bed of Chaos in a redeemable way. It's been over a decade of YouTubers constantly beating a dead horse into its grave, and it's almost impossible to change someone's mind on the internet once their heart has settled on a conundrum. After seeing and hearing all of this, do you still think the Bed of Chaos is flawed the way you previously thought? Give it a try with this perspective, and hopefully you can see the true beauty of this concept that is unfortunately dragged down by convenience. I hope someone found this enlightening in some way. It may take a new playthrough to retry its entirety, but the chance to finish it all in one go fascinates me with this information I was informed on. And don't forget that you can reload a save with a flash drive to experience how I feel the fight should have been handled, which keeps the checkpoints and removes the run back. I have a closing question. Has an organic Bed of Chaos reset been looked into? I know there are several YouTubers with tools capable of scanning and dissecting aspects, so I don't think a checkpoint reset is out of the question, but rather never looked for. I want to thank a YouTuber named Matthew Manny for showing me how wrong I was. I had no idea that the design was this consistent in strategy. If you have any further questions, please ask away. I'll see you next time, and remember to practice for perfection.